in order to stay sane as a parent and as a working mother, you can't really bog yourself down to those kind of goals. I think it's the small things, that the small achievements keeps you going. So there's certain things that I feel like my son or my daughter is able to do, and I commend them for that. I appreciate them doing it. But at the end of the day, I do have that sense that they're not able to do this. They're not able to write yet. They're not able to read yet. If we do that, then we're not only putting our children down, but we're also putting ourselves down.
Assalamu alaikum, Almas, and welcome to the show.
Walaikum assalam, Ifra. How are you today?
Alhamdulillah, I'm good. How's your day going so far?
Alhamdulillah, it's been a really good morning. It's been a good, productive morning.
That's awesome. So before we start, Almas, can you give us an introduction about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, sure. I'm a primary school teacher, a primary trained teacher turned stay-at-home mum, but also a small business owner. I've got 3 children, ages 4, 3 and 9 months now. So they're all under 5. And what I love to do is create exciting learning experiences for my children at home that allows them to learn through play pretty much. And a lot of those practices are pretty much inspired by Montessori principles. I've learned to kind of adapt as I go. So a lot of the principles kind of align with my Islamic values. The one thing that I enjoy as being a teacher and a mum is to teach my children with the minimal amount of resources, minimal amount of activities or toys or anything that we have at home, and create a fun experience for them. It doesn't necessarily have to be something really high end or really aesthetic looking, but what I want to do is kind of get them to learn new things every day, whether that be at home or maybe just going outside sometimes, but mostly at home.
Awesome. I heard about the work you were doing, but was like particularly that concept of teaching children under 5 through play. And that's something that I really want to explore in today's episode. So I want to first of all start off with actually asking you, like you mentioned something about something called Montessori method and the principles associated. Would you be able to give us an introduction to that?
Yeah, sure. The one thing that I really learned over the years being a parent and also a teacher is that I came across this whole Maria Montessori method, and there's lots of those principles that I kind of really loved. So Maria Montessori focuses on allowing your children to learn through play and engage in real life experiences. So whether that be doing things at home, but allowing them to be like focusing on like the children. So it's child-centric. There's a lot of hands-on learning and pretty much allowing them to be the instructor and you're facilitating their play. So they're kind of being the guide, they're doing what they want, but you're kind of facilitating the play for them. It allows your child to think open-endedly. So there's a lot of open-ended play. It allows your children to think in a wide perspective and kind of, I'd say, lots of resources that you have at home and like kind of creating a learning experience with what we have at home. So I think lots of the practical like life experiences that you can do at home with your children is that teaching them to bake or teaching them to do gardening or whether that be learning like certain things while you're going out grocery shopping. So like everyday life experiences, but adapting and making it a bit more child-centric.
Right. So from what I understand, it sounds like teaching them real life experiences or like real life things that we do in a playful method for them.
Yeah, definitely.
So I guess the question that comes to mind right now is like when you look at age groups and so a 1-year-old can't do what a 2-year-old can do or a 3 or 4 or 5. So it's like it's different ages have different abilities. And so how do you actually know what your child is capable of learning so that you can be able to put together that play, I guess?
I think the one thing that I've learned over the years is that it's not like one child size fits all type of thing.
Yeah.
Because I definitely see differences with my children. I know it's hard not to compare your children just within siblings or comparing your child to another child. But the one thing that I've learned is that I'd say just me being as a teacher is that once you've kind of seen your child in that environment, in that learning environment, and they're doing a certain thing and you see that they're able to do a certain skill, they're able to like do a puzzle without any assistance, or they're able to do like engage in some kind of sensory play without any assistance or any type of like problem solving activity. So you kind of adapt as you go. So, you know, what I try and do is, because I see a difference between all 3 of my children, I'd say, but with the like the older 2, because the third, she's a lot younger now, but I try and adapt with the activity that I've planned with them. So, for instance, if we've got a water play activity, we might have lots of puzzles that we put into the water, like add a bath stop in there to make it kind of colorful. And my daughter, when she was 1, she was pretty much just playing with water and the puzzles. She wasn't doing anything with the puzzle pieces.
Right.
But my son, who was like, I'd say 2.5 or 3 at the time, he was trying to get in the pieces and kind of fitting into the puzzles. So that's that sense of differentiation. So they're both doing the same activity, but we're crafting it. So she's engaging in her sensory play, but she's also getting that exposure of all the puzzles, whether that be numbers or alphabet letters. But he's kind of doing 2 things at once. He's doing the problem solving and he's also engaging in that sensory play.
So what I'm curious to know at this point is when you actually set up these activities, like how do you actually go about with, like, are you very strict with the schedules, or you have like certain goals you want to reach in terms of like what your children should learn at that age? Say, for example, I've heard how in the Montessori method, children would learn how to like fold a napkin or something, and those little day-to-day chores, you can say. So it's like, do you have goals that you set that you want your child to learn this, and then you kind of put that together? Or how do you actually go about with the implementation? I guess that's where my question is coming at.
Yeah, that's a very good question, Rafra. And I think I get that a lot from a lot of parents. But I think me being a teacher, naturally, I have this kind of success criteria at the back of my head that, I want him to learn the alphabet by the end of this year, or I want him to count to 20 by the end of this year. But I think it's a matter of, in order to stay sane as a parent and as a working mother, you can't really bog yourself down to those kind of goals. So there's certain things, I think it's the small things, that the small achievements keeps you going. So there's certain things that I feel like my son or my daughter is able to do, and I commend them for that. I appreciate them doing it. But at the end of the day, I do have that sense that they're not able to do this. They're not able to write yet. They're not able to read yet. If we do that, then we're not only putting our children down, but we're also kind of putting ourselves down.
Okay, so you're saying to not have goals then? Would you say?
I think you could definitely have like short-term goals, certain things that you feel that your children will be able to achieve. Try not to have really high-end goals, because if you're starting off small, if you're starting off just now, by the end of this month, I want them to start reading. That seems really impossible to do. But I'd say sort of goals that your children will be able to do. And I think every parent knows their children on their own. I don't think any educator or any teacher is able to know a child unless they're actual parent, because I think the parent is the only actual teacher that they have, because they've been with them since the day they were born till now. And, so I think what you know of your child, and I think you learn and you adapt, and the type of goals that you feel that they can achieve, maybe simple things could be like, by the end of this month, if they're a 1-year-old, I want them to be able to solve a puzzle or something small. I think the best thing about Montessori is that you start small and then you work your way up from there.
So as a parent, let them be your guide, right? And then help them be able to learn these skills. So if I'm understanding these principles and I want to see this in my child, like for example, my 1-year-old daughter, how do I start? I'm convinced that this is how I want to inspire my child to empower them to grow and learn. But it's like, do I need to go out tomorrow and just like buy all these Montessori toys? Where do I start?
I think, honestly, it just comes down to starting very small. You might
how does
have
small look like?
Okay, so for example, you've got like a small little shelf over here and you've packed them with, I think that the one thing that I used to do, and I think I've learned that from my experience, is that you've got all these toys and you've just shoved them into the shelf. Now your child
is in a big box.
or they're in a big box. Your child will go up to them and feel automatically they're going to feel overwhelmed. They're going to feel, kind of like.
So that's the reason why they're like my daughter. I noticed the toys in the box. She doesn't take everything out. Like everything's in the box.
Yeah, definitely. They're all in the box, and she might be seeing the same thing. She might be seeing the same toy, the same activity every single day, and she might tend to get bored of it. So the one thing that I do is to make your learning environment or the child's play area or whatever area that they have, to make it as simple as possible, to try and make it as simple, like as minimal as possible. So you might be having 4 activities per week, like a 4 little cubicle little shelf, and putting 4 activities there. And as every week you could be rotating it, and you could be rotating the same thing.
So what do you mean by activity? Do you mean like a toy in those 4 boxes? So I'm imagining one of those IKEA shelves, like those 4 boxes. So do you just put like a toy in there, or what do you mean by activity?
It could be like a puzzle, and you've taken the puzzle pieces out, put them in a basket, or you've taken the little puzzle pieces and wrapped them in foil or any type of like colored paper. So what your daughter or like, someone else's son would be able to kind of like, there's like a process to try and get to the end result. So it's not just, putting them in there, I'm already done this, mum. So you've added like another step to it. So they're like, I have to do something to try and get to the end result. I feel like kids naturally, they want to win. They want to get to the end. So if you slow up the process a bit, they are more motivated to move on, and they're challenged in a way. That could be one activity, or you could perhaps be doing like a coloring book with a set of coloring pencils. That's in another shelf.
So you put them in like a tray or something inside the shelf.
Yeah. It doesn't always have to be in a tray, because not everyone has those trays or any type of tray. I know there's like this plethora of aesthetics on Instagram.
That's what I'm imagining.
Yeah. And you get really bogged down by that. And I think those are the things that really used to overwhelm me at times. But I knew that at the end of the day, if my child is getting challenged, if my child is getting those learning experiences at home and they're happy, that's all that matters. You've got that resource, you've got that toy, whatever it is, and they're playing with it in a certain way and they're happy, rather than them continuously bugging you, or come and play with me, which they may do because obviously they're children. They want you to be there with you. And just making it very simple, have those 4 activities and those 4 little cubicles. And with time, try and just like rotate them, whether that be like every week or every month. I'd probably say every week for children that are a lot younger, because they tend to get bored a lot easy than like older kids.
Yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense. Like from a clutter perspective, it makes me feel better too, because it's like there's so much toys I feel she has, and it's, well, not really a lot, but she has like a box of toys, and I feel even that's a lot of toys. But if I can move that somewhere else and then just take a few out so that she can play with it, that does make it feel like those toys were worthwhile.
Definitely. And they've used well in a way where you feel that it's worth its money type of thing, if it's like a very expensive toy or anything like that. Or if it's like a learning resource that you purchased online from like some kind of small business.
So do these toys always have to be like, when we say toy, do we always have to buy certain type of toys to make this work? Or like, is it possible in that shelf, like I can put like a pot and a spoon in there and put that as an activity?
Well, that's the amazing thing about Montessori principles, is that it's all about adapting, and it's all about using like everyday life items. It doesn't necessarily have to be toys. It could be like, obviously you wouldn't place like the bowl of water or like a scoop or anything like that in the cubicle, but you might have an activity in the afternoon where once you've done with work, you're sitting down and you've got like a whole tray of water and they've got like a scoop, and all they're doing is they're just pouring and they're scooping. So it's like scooping and transferring. They're getting that they're getting that fine motor skill development. They're getting that sensory play development, and also like that hand-eye coordination as well. So you feel like they're doing something simple, but they're actually learning a lot. And it's actually, these type of activities help them later on strengthen their like fine motor skills and be able to grasp the pencil once they are ready to actually pick up a pencil. Because obviously you're not going to give your child a pencil and start telling them to start writing a sentence. It's impossible.
On the topic of motor skills that you mentioned, I remember hearing somewhere how like children these days, because like they know how to like swipe on the phone, but they have weak motor skills in other areas, like holding a pen or something, because they didn't have that experience lot growing up.
Yeah. I also saw a video, and it was actually really sad, where there was a child, he was sleeping. He was in some kind of zone, or like he was so zoned out. He was sleeping, but he had like an imaginary iPad and he was just swiping. It was like he was swiping through like reels or something. And I was like, it's so sad nowadays, because kids are so connected to their devices. They're so connected to their iPads that they don't really realize that once you've put them to the side. I know that iPads and technology is advanced, and there's so many ways that you can teach your kids through those learning apps and everything as well. But sometimes your child isn't going to be getting all of the skill.
Yeah, we see how important that is actually when you see the effects of when they grow older and they can't hold a pen properly, or they can't do these basic things that we take for granted.
Oh, yes. I'm so grateful for my parents for not being always making us sit in front of the TV. There was a certain time in the afternoon or
But then again, back then in those days, we didn't have TV running for 24 hours anyway. Like shows would start and end at a time. So, I mean, it's a totally different world our children now are growing up in.
Yeah, and it's just this aspect of having so many choices now. As soon as they come on, they can just go on YouTube and watch whatever favorite show they have, whatever
Yeah.
movie they want to watch, whatever cartoon, it's right there. And at that time, and we had to wait. We had that anxious, like, excitement level that, oh my God, my favorite cartoon is going to be on at 4 p.m.
I
after
know, like
school.
we used to watch like one episode per week, right? And then we had to
Yeah.
wait the
I
next
know.
like whole 7 days. Can you believe that? We had to wait 7 days to watch a half an hour show.
I know. And I think that's why we're so blessed in a way that we had that kind of childhood. I know, like, our children are blessed as well now because they have all these options, and alhamdulillah, there's technology is advanced as well. But the certain things that we were blessed with, life is changing over time.
And I guess that's also for us to acknowledge that the world is a different place, and we have to be cognizant of that as parents, that we have different challenges than our parents. And we have the tools to deal with that as well. So, I mean, like, one of the things that I noticed you also do is you actually infuse Islamic principles into the way you're teaching your children. And I'd love to hear more about that. Like, how does that look like?
I think I started, I'd say, like a year or two ago, where I noticed I came across this amazing Instagram page. It was a sister, her name was Zainab, and her Instagram page is called BRB Raising Kids. The minute I went on her page, I just fell in love with her content. And her whole Islamic, like, the whole teaching practice was about Quran-inspired Montessori play. So I was like, oh my God, I love Montessori.
nice.
I love reading about the Quran. I love the tafsir, the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ. So I really wanted to get my kids to fall in love with that as well. And that's one thing that I think when we were kids, alhamdulillah, that our parents gave that Islamic foundation, but I don't want my kids to not get that base, not fall in love with the seerah, not fall in love with like certain surahs. So what I try and do is that we get like certain surahs that might be simple for your children to understand. Like, for example, we've got like Surah Namal or Surah Nal, the surah is about the ant, surah about the bee. So what we're doing is that we're learning about the surah. What's so amazing about the surahs is that lots of the scientific principles and scientific facts come from the Quran that a lot of people don't know. There might be certain things, like I know that the surah about the bee, where like children can learn about the structure of a bee. They could learn about pretty much the anatomy of the bee and how bees collect nectar from the flower. It could just be like one verse from a surah, and then unpacking that surah, that verse, and just like creating a lesson out of it, creating like a whole bee lesson, the unit of the bee.
Would you say, though, something like that is more appropriate for children who are a bit older, like say 5?
I'd say definitely for children, probably ages 4 and 5.
Okay, so you would say that the process of infusing more Islamic education would be around 4 and 5. Because I'm thinking a 1-year-old would like play with the bee, like a play with a toy bee, of course.
100%, yeah.
So what
Well,
else
you
would they do?
can just like play the surah, or like there's lots of videos on YouTube which kind of explain the whole, like explain a certain surah through like storytelling. You could like make them watch it. And then you could just sit down and discuss the surah. It doesn't have to be an actual activity. You could be discussing, what did you learn about the surah? What are the certain things that you feel like you really loved about it? And then later on, as they grow up, you can kind of extend on that learning.
Yeah, to explain it more. Yeah, that makes sense.
Definitely.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely do see a lot of value, even like playing the Quran and everything, or reciting the Quran around when they're young, because they pick it up and it just makes it so easy for them to memorize later on, because they heard that a lot.
I think in the early years, we don't realize that children's brains are like, they're actually like sponges. They grasp things so quickly. And there's certain things that you don't want them to grasp, but they learn very quickly. But like the certain surahs, like I know for a very long time, we were playing Surah Fatiha in the morning. And now, alhamdulillah, most of my children are able to recite Surah Fatiha.
Oh, mashallah.
Yeah.
And they're quite young, right? 4 and 5.
No, my daughter's 3.
Oh, your
son's
daughter's
4.
3, mashallah. Very nice.
My son's going to be 5 next month. I think
So your
that's
3-year-old can recite Surah Fatiha now?
she has moments where she would be able, she would sit down and recite the whole thing. But then she has days when she would be like, no, I'm not doing it. And I'm like, all right.
Oh,
she's
yeah,
having
yeah. But like to actually hear that she was able to do it is very encouraging.
Yeah. Alhamdulillah.
Really nice.
Just certain surahs, like short surahs that you don't realize that your kids are able to learn. We really underestimate our kids' abilities, you know.
Yeah, I agree.
My aim is not to just shove knowledge down their throats, but adapt with them and be flexible. If I feel that my child is getting really overwhelmed, my son tends to do that. He starts to get really bogged down. But if he doesn't understand something, he's like, I'm not understanding it. And he gets really worried and gets anxious about it. We kind of just move away from the space. And I'm like, you know what? We don't have to do this today, Hassan. We can do it tomorrow. We can do it another day. Because at the end of the day, we want our kids to be happy. We want them to be learning, but in a way where they're happy, they're willing to do it again, type of thing. Not feel that, oh, my mom's going to sit me down again. And I'm not
so
looking
you can
forward to it.
associate like positive memories with learning. So it's not like a stressful when I'm learning.
Or, like as we were young, we were like taught to sit down and like go through, like study or do your homework. And then we were going out to play. But what I want our children to, what my children or like, of this generation is to kind of connect that, like a positive connection with learning rather than just feel that learning is just work, but learning can actually be enjoyed.
I agree. So that learning can continue throughout life.
Yeah, inshallah.
And that's very important. Yeah. All right, nice. Well, look, then the next thing I want to actually speak to you is actually more on the topic of toys, right? So what are good toys to look out for? What are the bad toys to look out for? Because now I'm actually thinking about setting up this environment for my daughter, and I might have to go out and buy stuff, or I have to get rid of some toys which she has. And I want to know your thoughts.
I think there's lots of toys out there. There's so many out there. There's so many resources. There's so many websites. There's so many small businesses. But I feel like the toys are where you feel that there's no purpose to them. They're just making
What
sound.
do you mean by no purpose to them?
Like they're not really an objective out of it. It could just be like a little toy teddy bear or something. Teddy bears are great. They sometimes like a sense of comfort for your children, but it can't be like a teddy bear that's making so much noise. I wouldn't put it on a shelf because I feel like your child's not really getting anything out of that. It could just be sitting.
So it's just a teddy bear that like you press and it sings, for example. So
or
that it's not much of a use.
I feel like it's a kind of toy it might be overstimulating your child. It might not really be getting your child to do anything. And your child's just doing the thing. They're pressing the button over and over again, and your child not be.
Okay,
they're not really getting
those like
out of
toys
it.
that they're just like clicking on the button and it makes a noise and they have nothing to do. I guess no problem solving, no nothing.
100%. And I feel like nowadays there's lots of online stores, there's lots of even like the normal department stores like Big W, Kmart and stuff. They've actually started putting lots of open-ended style toys where there's a lot more that you can get out of it, like a puzzle, like a wooden puzzle, lots of wooden toys, which it makes it seem boring, but they're a lot more resourceful and they last longer as well. I think all of those plastic toys, they break really easily and they sometimes can be a bit of a hazard unless you feel that they're a lot more older to manage with toys like that. I know my son, like, he's really into superheroes and everything like that. I'm not getting rid of all of his Marvel toys and stuff like that. He loves it. I let them I sometimes buy them for it, but I feel like we're not really getting
are you saying the Marvel toys are like useless toys?
I do agree.
Your son will hear this.
I do feel like they're useless, but at the end of the day, it keeps him happy. And when he's doing his independent play, he's engaging in his like superhero world. That's the imaginative play going on. We want to encourage them in play, in learning experiences where I feel that they're getting challenged in a way, where they feel that you're getting something out of it. Where you feel that your child will come away from that.
So they evokes their curiosity. Right.
Yeah, definitely. It nurtures their curiosity. It kind of brings them into some kind of like in a world where they can actually learn and pick up certain principles and stuff and relate it to the real world. I think a really amazing tool that we've started doing is we've started playing Monopoly.
Okay.
With my 4-year-old. My 3-year-old kind of just sits there. She's like the banker type of thing. She kind of like, she's in charge with all of the money and stuff. And what Monopoly does, obviously we might not be playing it as rule by rule, but what we're doing is that we're doing the whole aspect of buying and selling and what needs to be bought. And if I purchase a certain property, I can get money by someone coming into my house and paying me rent. But we make it as simple as possible. Like it might not be if a property is in the book of the rule of the Monopoly.
Make it more age appropriate.
Make it more age appropriate. So, and my kids love it. They love the handling of the money. They feel like they've got actual money in their hands. And we could relate that to a real life experience. We could go out shopping to Kmart or something. The other day, I gave him like a $20 note. And I'm like, son, what do you think you can do with a $20 note? And he goes out and he's like, I'm going to I feel like if I buy something for $10, I told him, obviously, because he doesn't really understand subtraction or multiplication or anything like that, that I told him, you can get 2 items for $10, or you could get 4 items for $5 each. So he went out and he got like 1 item for $10, and then he got 2 items for $5. So it's that whole aspect of kind of giving that real life experience. They're learning as they go. So they're kind of like, as they go older, they're like, oh, okay, my mom, when we were a lot younger, she gave me like a certain budget and I had to work around that. I try and make it as simple as possible. Obviously, if I feel that he's not getting it or she's not getting it, I kind of move away from the start.
Those toys, try to connect them to like real life experiences as much as you can, so that it can be worthwhile for them to play with. And
definitely.
And it challenges them, it grows them, it helps them with their motor skills. So that makes a lot of sense. So not just those ones where they're like passively play with it. So what I'm hearing is like active play. Definitely. So they're taking a part in playing with that. That makes a lot of sense. The funny thing on toys, I remember having this conversation with a friend of mine, and she was like to me, oh, kids don't even play with toys. And she's like, just go to a secondhand shop and buy like old phones and like these little gadgets kind of thing that are very fiddly, and let them just play with that.
Yeah, I think I
thought that was very creative. I never got around to actually doing that, but I can imagine like back in our days when we were younger, like those phones and stuff, like you like click it and then it like moves around, and you can get a lot of active play out of that.
Yeah, and I think what we don't realize is that there's lots of things at home that you could create like a whole activity out of. It might be like a container or like a plastic container and stuff, and you put like, I don't know, rice in it, and they just you get a spoon, and that's like 3 things, and that's an activity for them, like for your 1-year-old or like your 2-year-old or something.
True.
Yeah, it's really, really simple, but I feel like because there's just so much out there, people just tend to get really
I guess that's where we feel overwhelmed and we kind of tend to complicate it.
Oh, yeah, that's so true.
That was really helpful. And in fact, I imagine actually, I think I can even go and start setting up some sort of basic environment now, actually, with the information that you gave. So I'm thinking of putting together some sort of shelf and putting just 4 activities and getting rid of that box or hiding it somewhere in the house.
You won't be needing that box. It's maybe like once in a lifetime. You won't be needing it. If you've got those 4 activities, you could be like rotating it as well. I mean, not just having those 4 activities, because I feel like kids tend to get bored, and there might be times
I guess I'll take those 4 activities and put it back in the box and take another 4 out of the box or something like that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. All right, that sounds good. We're actually near the end of our interview, so I'd like to ask you a few questions that we ask all our guests.
Yeah.
So the first one is, what is one life hack that has improved your life?
I think the one life hack that I think as a parent that has literally been a game changer for me, and I know some parents probably won't agree with me with this because it's all about management of time and anything like that, but just waking up a few hours earlier before your children has been an absolute game changer for me. Like whether that be staying up after Fajr and having those moments to yourself, whether that be trying to meet like a goal that you have, your own working on your own passion project, or whether that be doing your own work, that your own type of soul project that you're working on, or just getting like a bit of time to just unwind. Because I feel like now it's just so hard because there's so many working mums out there. We don't get that time to ourselves. I know there's lots of parents that don't get that time in the morning. So maybe like sometimes allocate a certain time during the day, or whether that be in the evening, whether that be an hour or 2. But I would definitely suggest waking up earlier in the morning, which means sleeping early, which has also really helped me as well, allowing me to focus more in my work and trying to meet my own personal goals. It doesn't have to be career oriented. It could just be like personal development goals, whether that be learning to be more confident with ourselves, or learning to work on our self-esteem, or learning to be
so like personal growth.
Yeah, definitely. So I think that's the one thing that has really helped me grow. I think in the beginning, it's really hard because you're not used to waking up that early, or you're used to going back to sleep after Fajr or something. But if you do get those early hours, it's a lot more quiet. And if your daughter or your son do wake up in the morning, they might be able to feed them or anything like that, or put them back to sleep. Or if your kids are a lot like way early birds, then I'd say they're a lot more quiet in the early times of the day. I feel like with my children, they do sleep early. even if they do wake up early in the morning, they're a lot more quiet. And even if they're in their corner, I still get that time to kind of unwind
Yeah,
and focus on my
true.
own
I've noticed
time.
that as well. My daughter generally has a good mood in the morning. She's happy
Yeah.
going around herself and playing.
Unless
Yeah.
they're sick or if they're like going through
Yeah, of
something or
course.
something like that. Obviously, it doesn't work out every single day for a parent. Every day
Yeah.
is different. Even if you're able to do that like once or twice a week, it really affects your mood as well. So when your kids do wake up, you're a lot more happy. You're able to cater to their needs, and you're a better parent. That's at the end of the day.
I agree. And that's a really good point that you brought up about even just trying that for 1 or 2 times a week, because I know I've tried many times to wake up in the morning and be able to get some work done and just work on myself. And it always makes me feel good, positive, and uplifted. But the struggle is like when I wake up and I'm already sleep deprived from the night. So it's like I feel like I have to choose between the two. But just hearing that, hey, I can even do it for once or twice a week, I think that's very doable because my body can recover the next day. I can sleep in a bit more to balance out the sleep debt until my daughter grows a bit older and I can properly sleep.
Yeah, I think it's a lot easier for me now once my kids have been like 3 or 4 and my daughter's a lot younger. I know once she hits
Yeah.
that 1 year old mark, it's going to get hard for me again. I'm in that period where I'm kind of like in a fantasy world because alhamdulillah, my kids have been really good these past couple of months. But it's
Allah.
just about time management. And I think Allah kind of, alhamdulillah, get grants barakah for you when you do
Yeah, true.
work in those early hours as well. Because at the end of the day, that's what our Prophet had recommended for us as well, to try and work
Yes,
in the early
yes.
hours of the day.
It's also interesting that you mentioned this because just last night I felt like I wanted to wake up early morning, but I couldn't because I wasn't sleeping well. And I just like made dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and said, Ya Allah, like Isha is really late right now because it's summer and I'm not getting enough sleep, but I really want to wake up in the morning and do things in the morning. And like today I was able to wake up and I had a nap later on, but it balanced out and I feel good and I feel positive. So I think it's also just placing our trust in Allah, not being so attached to how many hours you sleep. It's just like Allah will give me the quality in my sleep and He'll take care of me.
100%. Yeah, it's just having the right intentions as well. If you are
Intentions.
waking up for a certain thing, I'd say I wouldn't suggest to wake up early and like watch a movie or something like that.
Yeah, of
That's not
course.
something I would do. But I'd say just having that bit of me time, whether that be reading a book or doing your own work, just having that kind of quiet time, it has really helped me because all my kids, they're under 5 and it gets chaotic in the house sometimes with all 3 of them.
Hard times.
But yeah, so that's one life hack.
Awesome. And the next question that we have is, what is a book that has helped you level up in your life?
I wouldn't really say I'm an avid reader, but these past couple of months, I've been working on reading. I'd say when I was a lot younger, when I was in primary school, I loved to read, like, those Emily I. Finger books, those Goosebumps series, in those Premier's Reading Challenge. If you were in primary school, public primary school, everyone would know what that is.
Here in Australia, it's probably primary.
But as I got older, obviously life comes in the way and you forget about books because there's technology comes in the way. But the one book that has helped me is the one right here. So it's called Montessori Method at Home. So this book that I've read, I've got like a few post notes here because as I go, I'm trying to put notes in there because again, as I say, I'm not really a professional. I'm not like an expert in Montessori.
Yeah.
But I've learned a lot from this book. And it's given me guidance to try and that motivation to keep going because there's lots of principles in there that are so simple that you can do it every day, like just everyday life.
Yeah.
This is one book that's helped me. And another book that I'm actually reading at the moment, just the Kindle, which is called How to Speak to Anyone. And I think it's by Leo, I can't remember his last name. But that's a really good book because it's helped me. And there's one thing that I've really sought since I was younger is I felt like I didn't really have a very high self-esteem and I'm a bit of an introvert extrovert, you could say.
Yeah.
So I tend to, when there's a whole room full of people, you probably won't be able to notice me. But when there's just one person and there's just me, I probably would be speaking more because I think that's just how I work. But the one thing that I'm working on is my communication skills. And it's one thing that's helped me become a lot more confident with just my whole YouTube journey. And inshallah, when I do start my podcast journey as well. So it's a great book. I'm still in the early stages, but it's one thing that's really gotten me to understand like the whole systems of eye contact and smiling more or being a lot more happy, even if you're not happy. I wouldn't say to fake it, but I think the saying that comes is fake it till you make it. It's sometimes that kind of does work Because I feel like you can train your brain in a certain way
Yeah,
to
because
get
if your external influences your internal.
definitely, yeah. If you feel that you're reacting or if you're being in a certain way, if you're being very positive, your brain will automatically become a positive person. You will automatically become a more positive person. If you just train to become a lot more positive and you train to smile a bit more or you train to make more eye contact with strangers, not in a weird, awkward way,
Yeah.
but only if you're actually communicating with them. So yeah, that's two books that I'm currently
Awesome.
reading.
Almas, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Mifra. It's been a really good journey.
So one last thing is that you mentioned YouTube, you mentioned podcast. Where can listeners find you if they want to learn more information?
I have my Instagram page, which is called Eager Little Beavers.
We'll link that all in the show notes.
Yes, on my Instagram page, you've got my link tree, and in my link tree, you've got the links to my YouTube channel. And inshallah, I'm still working on my podcast channel, which currently in the works, in production as well. And yeah, so you could probably see those links there. On my YouTube, it's mostly those in our shorts. We've got like our learning through play activities that we've been doing on Instagram. And also the longer content is also about parental support content. So pretty much like how to handle temper tantrums or how to potty train your child. So simple mix and match. Simple mix and match that I think that I wanted to share with everyone that I've learned over the years as a parent and also a teacher as well. So yeah, I really hope everyone does enjoy and does subscribe to my channel as well. So the channel is called ELB Beavers. Yeah.
ELB Beavers. ELB Beavers?
So it's EL Beavers, so there's just one B. So
okay.
Okay. Yeah, a bit of a short form thing. So yeah.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Almas.
Thank you so much, Ifra.
Hey everyone, that wraps up another episode of the Muslim Life Hackers podcast. If you liked what you heard and want to hear more, please hit the subscribe button below so that you can get updated when we have new episodes coming out. Remember, we're also available as a podcast, so you can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you again for tuning in, and remember, keep striving and keep getting better every day.